Okay. Everybody have their spot? Good morning. Thank you all for being here today, and thank you for your patience. This is our usual Monday press conference in which we cover two topics. The first is the weekly update on gun violence. The second topic is a topic that is timely and is pressing. And those of you who may have followed the brutal stabbing of a trans woman whose name we are not using today to protect her privacy may also know that a man named Robert Easley was arrested for that brutal stabbing, a stabbing of the thigh, calf, hands, and face that required hospitalization for several days, and that left its victim using a walker. That occurred about 9 days ago on the 20th of March, and this office will vigorously prosecute that terrible violent crime as we have vigorously prosecuted terrible violent crimes against trans people throughout this administration. But before we get into all of that, just a couple things. I'd like to acknowledge some of the community stakeholders, staff, and media who are here. We have with us Kendall Stevens, student and LGBTQ advocate of Temple University, who has herself been the victim of a violent crime against a trans person. We have Reverend Andrea Lamore Harrington of the Whosoever Metropolitan Community Church of Philadelphia. Deja Lynn Alvarez is here, Director of Community Engagement with the World Healthcare Infrastructures and chairperson of the Philadelphia Police Department's LGBT Committee. Micah Thomas is here, Operations Manager for GALAEI. Did I pronounce that right? Yeah. All right, GALAEI. Jessica Tomczyk, who is an LGBTQ advocate and works with the Central Division of Victim Services. Kelly Burkhart from our office, LGBTQ plus liaison for the DAO's Victim Services Unit. We have Caleb Arnold, who is Immigration Counsel with the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office and also addresses many issues affecting trans people. The invisible person here today is Seamus Meintel. Mr. Meintel is an Assistant District Attorney in our Homicide Unit who is involved in the prosecution of such a case. Mr. Meintel at the moment is still in court doing his job, which is holding people accountable and bringing them to justice. If he's able to be here before the end of the press conference, he'll take his place with us as well. Let me shift to the gun crime update, and this is for the week of March the 21st through March the 27th. The number of homicides to date up to the end of that period is 117. This is an increase of just under 29% over the prior year. The homicide clearance rate is at about 50%. Number of homicides last year on this date was 91. Bear in mind that on this date last year, the courts had only begun to close. They had been open most of the year. Philadelphia Police Department was only then shifting some of its practices. Probation was only then beginning to stop seeing probationers and parolees in the office and in their homes. On Friday, an 11-year-old and a 14-year-old were both shot on the 1500 block of McKinley Street in Oxford Circle. The 11-year-old passed away from this homicide. The DAO's Homicide Non-Fatal Shooting Unit continues to work collaboratively with the Philadelphia Police Department in the investigation into this incident. The DA's CARES program, the one that works intensively with survivors of homicides for the first 45 days before the rest of our victim services and other services kick in, is involved. Anyone in the community with information regarding this shooting is encouraged to contact the Philadelphia Police Department's Homicide Unit at 215-686-3334. If there are those who, for whatever reason, are willing to provide information to the DA's office but are not comfortable providing it to other outlets, we are ready to accept that information. Please contact our Homicide and Non-Fatal Shooting Unit. Also on Friday, 7 people were shot at a place called Golf and Social on Delaware Avenue. The Philadelphia Police Department's investigation into the incident is ongoing. Anyone in the community with information regarding the incident is encouraged to call the East Division of the Philadelphia Police Department at 215-686-3243. And please let me repeat, we are always here to accept information if that is how people want to provide it. All right. So in the lead up to International Transgender Day of Visibility, which is this Wednesday, March the 31st, the DA's office remains committed to standing in solidarity with the LGBTQ plus community, including its transgender members. For far too long, gay, trans, queer, and non-binary people have been unable to receive support and advocacy from agencies involved in the criminal justice system. Why? Because law enforcement has never worked very well for marginalized people. And that is LGBTQ plus people, and that is other people whose status did not place them in a favored position, who did not have power, who did not have resources, who were frowned upon in some way, who were the least of these. Well, that's not okay. And it's not okay because it's immoral, but it's also not okay because not serving marginalized people is a pretty good way to encourage crime. Do you think it is a coincidence that serial killers have traditionally preyed on marginalized communities, whether they were sex workers, or they were immigrants, or they were people who used drugs? It's not. When you take any category of people and place them in a position where they can't come to police, or they can't come to court, what do you think you get? They may be necessary to testify for someone in their own community who's been harmed, to testify for themselves, but they may also be necessary to testify for people who are not marginalized. And they can't do it. So it is not just that it hurts them to have that kind of criminal justice system, it is that it hurts all of us to have that kind of criminal justice system. It is our desire to continue improving services and collaborative efforts with Philadelphia's LGBTQ plus communities. I am proud to say that my relationship as an attorney, even before I became a prosecutor, with these communities was one of support and one of collaboration, and that's what we want to have even now that I wear a different hat in government. There are ongoing discussions regarding the formation of an LGBTQ plus advisory committee comprised of community members that will regularly, with the DAO executive team, meet and inform us about their thoughts on our existing policies and possible changes in these policies, as well as our messaging. Any community members interested in contributing to the formation of the LGBTQ plus advisory committee can contact Kelly Burkhart, the DAO's LGBTQ plus liaison, at 215-686-8909. Kelly Burkhart also works with victims, all kinds of victims. It is crucially important that those in government acknowledge, listen to, and affirm the everyday experiences of the LGBTQ plus communities. We will therefore be dedicating the rest of this press conference to amplifying LGBTQ plus voices. At this time, I'd like to invite the following people to come forward and talk for about 2 to 3 minutes, one by one, to provide some remarks. And it will be in this order. Kelly Burkhart, who is the LGBTQ plus liaison for DAO's Victim Services Unit. Kendall Stevens, student and LGBTQ advocate at Temple, who has also personal experience with these kinds of crimes. Deja Lynn Alvarez, Director of Community Engagement for World Healthcare Infrastructures, Chairperson of the Philadelphia Police Department's LGBT Committee. Micah Thomas, Operations Manager for Galay, and the Reverend Andrea Lamore Harrington, Associate Reverend at Whosoever Metropolitan Community Church of Philadelphia. After they speak, we will take questions, and by we, I mean all of us. We will all take questions. I would ask that the questions for this official event be official and be about the topics we have raised. If there are questions about politics, that's something that we can discuss after this conference is concluded, and I will stay here so that we can speak further about the time and place for those discussions and make sure any of your questions will get answered soon enough in that regard. All right, and with that, I call forward, after we clean the surface, Kelly Burkhart.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, everyone. As the DA said, my name is Kelly Burkhart. I am the LGBTQ liaison for Victim Services, and I'm also the non-fatal shooting coordinator for the DA's office. So everything that has been said today is incredibly important to pay attention to because there's a lot of stuff going on out there in the city. I'm not going to speak very long because it's more important to hear the voices of my trans siblings who are a lot more marginalized than myself. I just want to talk a little bit about the things that we've actually been doing here. We've created a data tracking lab for LGBTQ cases, which we are, it's still in the beta stage, but we're still working through and being identified immediately every time now a crime is being committed. We also, though, are on the ground with a lot of these advocates behind me. Every time, say, my colleague Deja hears something, my friend and colleague Deja hears something, she calls me, I call her. It's collaborative effort, and that's what we're here about. And some of the other things that we're also doing is we're working on competency trainings because it's important that we all understand and know who we're working with. And we at Victim Services use a trauma care approach, and that means that we are understanding and allowing space for our victims to breathe. I'm going to stop talking because, like I said, I'd rather give more time to my trans siblings that are next to me. So please, Ms. Kendall Stevens.
Good morning. Hello, my name is Kendall Stevens, and I am a transgender woman. I realize that by me saying that, I may have lost half my audience, and that's part of the problem. But as a concerned citizen, a hate crime survivor, and a productive, contributing member of this community, I am very terrified of the violence in our city that has run amok. Our peace of mind is shaken. The spirit of our city is broken, and too many of us have actively participated in that brokenness. How? By our divisiveness, our intolerance, and apathy towards one another. We talk about the physical violence gripping this city and fear. What about the emotional and psychological violence so many of us employ to others in and outside of our communities every day? Before a mob of hateful transphobes burst into my home and beat me senseless while my godchildren watched in horror, 12 and 16, I couldn't walk my street without my own neighborhood harassing me, bullying me, making me feel unsafe and unwelcome. My very existence as a trans woman was enough to deem me unworthy of kindness, decency, respect, and civility, which, by the way, is the bare minimum we can afford each other. And our divisiveness is 100% responsible for the culture of violence that is dangerously taken over our streets by the hands of hate that we've emboldened by our own apathy. But I believe in the power of our people, and we do have the power to turn this city around like a light switch. We can make a decision today to determine what kind of Philadelphia we want to be, and now it's time for a reckoning. A call to action. The hate isn't helping us. It is paralyzing us in fear. And no longer can we continue to live precariously under the weight of the hate that is fueling the reign of terror that has taken this city hostage. After my attack, Philadelphians, many I did not know, came to my home in droves, knocked on my door to express their empathy. Someone who I did not even know, never met a day in my life, bought and reinstalled a Ring camera in front of my house that was ripped from my door after my attack. Cards with words of encouragement came flooding in. Home-cooked meals. And I still have a freezer full of casserole, by the way. Thank you, Philadelphia. But that's the Philadelphia I believe in. That's the Philly that I know is going to reign supreme once we get a foothold on the violence that's taken over the city. And that's the brotherly love and sisterly affection I know we all have the power to display. And that is the Philadelphia I'm going to continue to fight for. We are the major part of the solution to our problems. So today I take a stand to fight for Philly, starting with my work with the district attorney's office and other leaders in this community to end the anti-trans violence and to help make this Philadelphia a safer, more affirming place for all of us. We have a long road ahead of us to reclaim our city, but the journey has to start somewhere. But we must do this together, in solidarity, and as a united front, or it won't just be transgender people who are suffering. We all will. We all have. So Philadelphia, I am extending a hand, an olive branch, in the spirit of togetherness. Please join me today in helping take back our city, because we need all of us to do it. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Philadelphia. Again, my name is Deja Alvarez. I'm Director of Community Engagement at World Healthcare Infrastructures. I am also very involved in politics. I just want to take a moment to, I had some folks that I reached out to and said, hey, I'm going to join a press conference with Larry on Monday, and they said, oh, that's very politically charged. You may want to be careful about that. I take issue with that. I take issue with that because that is why now in 2021, we are still doing press conferences about marginalized communities being mistreated, being bullied, being murdered, being attacked. That is why. Why is my identity politically charged? Why? I don't understand it. I can't comprehend it. Why do you feel as though you have the right to decide who I am and how I live? I get up every day, I go to work. I pay my taxes, I pay my electric bill, I pay my gas bill, my insurance, my car payment. I am fighting for the same American dream that apparently we were all promised in the very beginning. But I think as most of us know, this country was founded and built on hate, racism, bigotry, and prejudice. Your personal bias, your beliefs, your church, your religion, your school, your neighborhood, has no business in my business. I live my life just like everybody else. I should be afforded the same that everyone else is afforded, the right to live in pursuit of happiness. Isn't that supposed to be our unalienable right? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? Nowhere in there does it say life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness unless you're a young black man. And you're told from the time you are a child that you are probably going to be a statistic, that when you walk out your door, you're going to be murdered. Or if you happen to come from another country and come to this country seeking the same American dream that everybody else seeks, you're told, nope, you don't have the right. Nope, you can be the victim of a crime and have nowhere to go to report it. If you even feel safe enough to attempt to report it without fear of being harassed by police or by government agencies all around. The pursuit of happiness, the promise of the American dream, there is no but after that. It was promised to all of us. I want to know when all of us are going to have the right to achieve that. I shouldn't have to fear walking into any building in this city, walking down any street in this city. I shouldn't have to be told that I'm a statistic, or that now I'm an elder because I've lived past the age of 35. Because statistically, trans women of color don't live past the age of 35. When are we going to address this as human beings and stop politicizing everyone's right to just simply exist? That's all we're asking for. So I want to thank Larry. This is a historic moment for you to do this during Trans Day of Visibility, for you to make sure that we're heard and that we're seen, and to let everyone know that our lives matter. So I thank you for that very much. Thank you, everyone.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Micah Thomas, and I'm the operations manager at Galay. I was formerly the Trans Equity Project recruiter, and we are currently renaming it to the Transgender, Intersex, Non-Binary, Gender Non-Conforming Services, which would be shortened to TINGS. TINGS means a thing, a beautiful thing. I am here because I am a parent. I am a person who receives behavioral health services, and through those services, I knew to live, I needed to transition. And when I transitioned from being a female to male, I extended my life. And I was searching for a community, and through the community of the LGBT community of Philadelphia, I was able to find my voice. And my voice is here with you to tell you that we will not be invisible, and we will be visible. To be an invisible mother, but then to transition and to be a proud, looked upon as what you may perceive as a father. I'm a proud parent, and I will always be a proud parent. International Trans Day of Visibility is on March the 31st, and it has been that way for almost a decade. I will be 28, and within the decade I have been in Philadelphia, I thought I was invisible. My birthday is on April the 1st, the day after the International Trans Day of Visibility. That should show you that we cannot erase who we are, black, trans, queer, people of color. We are here, we are queer, and we need the community to understand and respect that you may not understand who we are and what we believe. We are all God-fearing people, and we will be here to stand in solidarity with you if you can stand in solidarity with us. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. My name is Reverend Andrea Lamore Harrington, and I am an associate minister at Whosoever Metropolitan Community Church of Philadelphia. I happen to be a field coordinator for ACO, for National HIV Behavioral Surveillance for the city of Philadelphia. But my issue today I bring before you is 2 times that we as Christians have failed. The Bible says in John 3:16 that for God so loved the world that he sent his only begotten Son, so that whosoever believeth on him shall not perish but have everlasting life. Whosoever means trans. Whosoever means heterosexual. Whosoever means anyone that has breath and is living and is a human being. And the United States developed something called the Constitution, but in the preamble of the Constitution it says, we the people, in order to form a more perfect union. Well, how about if any of us are suffering, trans men, trans women, trans queer, whatever, if any of us are suffering, no one of us is free. No one of us can afford to say that we are there and we are okay, because our brothers and sisters are falling by the wayside. They're losing their lives because 2 times we forget, whosoever believes on him shall not perish. We forget that, but yet in the name of Christendom, we actually do violence. And we allow it, and we watch it as it grows and festers. Then, as human beings, we decided to form a country with a constitution that is supposed to protect all of us. The Philadelphia Police Department is supposed to protect all of us, not just some, not just others, but all of us. And today I come before you to remind you that whosoever means whosoever. I am a proud black Mexican transgender woman that lives every day with the utmost respect for everyone, for life. And I am not going to stand by idly while our brothers and sisters are taken out of here with nonsense, with foolishness, all because we dare not to remember whosoever. I charge you, each and every individual under the sound of my voice today, to remember that every day you live and you get up and you pay your taxes and you pay your bills, you are whosoever. And if you are whosoever, turn to the side and protect your sister. Turn to the side and protect your brother, because all of us together as citizens in this fair city of Philadelphia are whosoever. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for those powerful words. Beautifully done. All right, we are here to take questions. Just a little reminder for those of you in the media who may have covered some of these stories. We have seen a lot of violence against transgender people. Robert Easley, we spoke about him, and his stabbing of a victim whose name I'm not going to use, very recently on around the 20th of March. Before that, there was El Amin Abdallah, who was stopped driving a car, and in the car was Tracy Mia Green, deceased at that time. Homicide preliminary hearing on that case comes up April the 7th. That case dates from September of 2020. In June of 2020, we had Akhenaten Jones charged with the killing and the severing of the body of Dominique Remy Fells. In September of 2020, you have all heard from Kendall, and Kendall has lightly referenced her experience, but that is when that occurred. And then there's Troy Bailey and the homicide of Michelle Tamika Washington. This is a case that is past the preliminary hearing now. It was actually called to a jury trial last week. That was delayed only because of the many effects of the pandemic, including unavailability of some witnesses. But there will be a day in court, and it will be soon, for Mr. Bailey on the charges relating to the death of Michelle Tamika Washington. And then there was also Commonwealth versus Matthew White. You may recall that, a case prosecuted in this office, a case that led to the conviction of Mr. White, who was preying on trans women to rob them, preyed on 3 of them, robbing them one night, and on the next day, in a similar incident, ended up killing the boyfriend of one of the of a trans woman when the boyfriend tried to intervene and stop Mr. White from what he was doing. We will vigorously prosecute these cases. We are vigorously prosecuting these cases. We will win these cases, as many as we possibly can, because people need to know that there is no easy target in the city of Philadelphia. Are there any questions?
Can you talk about your collaboration with the city of Selena Morrison now, head of the LGBTQ alliance there, what you guys are doing, and the next action steps?
Kelly, would you like to take that?
Yeah. So sorry. So actually I've been talking with Selena a lot, especially since the recent stabbing, and we've been talking about working to create a pipeline along with, we're talking about like breaking down a lot of silos and how can we better serve our victims, you know, because when something happens, no one knows who to contact, and we're trying to streamline that now. So the conversations that we've been having have been directly about, you know, more support. How can we gather resources? She's been helping with that. Like, a lot of victims are looking for housing or needing transportation somewhere. You know, all the things that still happen after a crime has been committed. That's where also we've been having a lot of collaboration and a lot of conversation. But we've recently also talked with a victim service agency about how do we create that pipeline in a certain territory to where, you know, a crime happens and we're getting notified, so instead of like getting various calls or things going on social media, we're handling it as soon as possible.
What's going to be the role of this council, the advisory council? What's the role, what's the selection process going to be like?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's really just, it's having these conversations, it's working on policies, it's, for our office, but also how do we also serve the community? Like I said, it's breaking down a lot of silos, having a lot of community here, and giving us their input, because we don't know everything that's happening.
And then the selection process.
The selection process, I mean, everything, we've been having these discussions, for the last couple months, so we're still kind of fleshing a lot of that out. I know that if people would like to reach out to be a part of it or have suggestions or ideas, you can certainly give me a call. My number is 215-686-8909.
For our friends at Telemundo, can we get someone to explain the advisory board's agenda in Spanish?
Well, I can try. Muchas gracias. Aquí en la oficina de Fiscalía, la oficina del District Attorney, tenemos un grupo que se reúne para discutir la protección y los derechos de la gente LGBTQ. Trabajamos con la comunidad y trabajamos con varias partes del gobierno como nuestros socios para proteger a la comunidad. Are there any other questions in English or Spanish?
We have a couple of email questions.
Okay.
This is from Sherry Gray, KYW. What's the DA's office policy on prosecuting attacks against the trans and LGBT community as a hate crime?
So our policy on that is the same as our policy when it comes to protecting every other group that is subject to hate. The law is very clear. If the crime is motivated by hatred, then we can and we will bring a hate crimes charge. If the crime is not motivated by hate, then we won't. A robbery does not become a hate crime simply because at the end of it a racial epithet is used. You have to have enough evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt the motivation. But where we have that, where we have evidence, we can get it from social media, we can get it from the statements that are made before the crime begins, we can get it from a pattern of victimization. Where we have that, we absolutely will charge hate crimes.
And can you repeat the status of the stabbing, the case status of the stabbing of the trans woman last week?
Yes, the case status is that the defendant in that matter has been arrested and charged. His name is Robert Easley. We are before the preliminary hearing. The case is only 9 days old. This is a case in which there was a brutal stabbing. The victim was harmed on various parts of the body, spent a number of days in jail, is now getting... I beg your pardon. Spent a number of days in the hospital, is now getting around with a walker. And we intend to vigorously prosecute this case. We are currently actually seeking to upgrade some of the charges based upon new evidence that we have. We are seeking to upgrade it to include, for example, an attempted murder charge. And that motions practice is underway. We look forward to the preliminary hearing in that matter.
And this question is from WHYY, Aaron Mendel. How many people will be part of the advisory board? Who will be part of it? And what is its primary goals?
So many questions.
Good question.
They're great questions. I mean, as I had mentioned, we will make sure that various folks from various ages, races, immigration status, it doesn't matter. We're going to be incredibly intersectional to make sure that everyone is a part of this. And as well as the goals are really to provide safety for our community, to also, so folks know that they have a place to go, that people they can talk to, because many times when crimes are committed, a lot of times folks are fair. As as you've heard a lot of our speakers talk about, they've been afraid to come, speak on a matter of being attacked or if they were a witness to a crime. And we're here to let you know that we're here to help, but we're also going to help you with resources. We're going to help you stay safe. We're going to work towards making sure that there's proper policies in place with how staff and folks are working with victims and survivors.
And how many members on the council, or is that not?
I think that's undetermined at this point. These conversations have been happening, and so we're gonna flesh it out, because sometimes when there's too many voices, it could be too much. But when there's not enough voices, then we're missing out.
All right, are there any other questions at this time? I will step over here if there's anybody who wants to discuss how they could get more information related to questions that are campaign related. I will speak to you there. Understand that it's an ethical violation for the resources of the DA's office to be used for political purposes, and therefore it would be inappropriate, in my opinion, for everyone to be standing here while I'm answering those questions. But I do want to be able to answer your question. Unlike everybody else who works in this office, I am permitted to do politics all day long, and therefore we will find a way to get you answers to your questions, but not standing behind an official microphone at an official event. Thank you very much.